they need out of him with the emphasis on pressure from the interior. T'Vondre Sweat has to play a pretty big role for that formula, that plan to work out for the Titans defense. So,
sure.
I will be asking questions. I will be wondering about T'Vondre Sweat all offseason because there are a lot of questions to be asked. With Burks, I think it's less about questions to be asked and more about what is he going to give the Titans in 2024 that he hasn't yet.
615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. So, pretty competitive 7-on-7 period. Levis threw a couple of touchdowns. Nick Westbrook-Akina was probably the best wide receiver who was out there and available to participate in the practices. Son Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who also made a nice play, getting a pick off Levis and taking it back to the house. There were a couple of plays that NWI made yesterday in practice. Levis was very excited about the first touchdown pass that he threw, so much so that he grabbed the ball after NWI cradled it like a child because he is recently, I think within the last couple of weeks, a new dad.
NWI?
So he's doing a little bit of touchdown celebration at practice. He's cradling the baby. Then Levis picks up the baby and punts it into the leg. Not ideal.
A lot of bodies not out there yesterday, right? Obviously, it is voluntary, but it was a long list of guys that were not on the practice field. As this is our final chance for OT takeaways this offseason.
I'm so happy that is indeed the case. I know it's about to go dark for 7 weeks, but I could do away with OT takeaways and minicamp musings. What is on the list of most annoying catchphrases that you've come up with regarding the local professional football team? Rans Bargans has to be up there.
Yeah, Rans Bargans, OT takeaways, or minicamp musings. I don't know. That's a good list.
Well, I think that for somebody asked, will high key or low key be coming back? Yeah, at some point we'll have to have Arden, and you'll hear from outside linebackers coach Ben Bloom later on in the show. We're going to do a assistant coach whip around kind of segment because all of them spoke yesterday, and there's a couple of key takeaways that I think you guys could stand to hear from, specifically Bill Callahan, Ben Bloom, as I mentioned, Bo Hardigree, the quarterback's coach. But yeah, it was a nice finish. Vibes were high on the last day of school, essentially yesterday. Now, worth noting that the rookies are sticking around. Rookie's going to be in town for another week, and I think Levis is going to be around for the majority of the offseason. He had mentioned at some point later in the summer, I think the quarterbacks and wide receivers are taking some kind of team-building trip or team-building day amongst themselves that Levis is going to organize. You know, like Mariota used to fly the receivers out to California and go have a throwing session or something like that during the offseason. Pretty standard type of stuff. So it sounds like that is indeed going to be the case. And
we should do that.
What?
We should do that. Little team building extravaganza.
Well, we are. You're not participating. We're going to Slay's wedding this weekend.
That's only 1/3 of the show is going to Slay's wedding.
Well, sure.
It's just you and Bert.
That's not bonding.
That's my favorite kind of bonding. Putting an entire country between us. I'll see you boys in a couple of days. No. This is actually funny you bring that up. I mean, what kind of show team building activity would you want to do? I tried to take the two of you to lunch at Tin Roof and nobody wanted to go.
What are you talking about?
We went.
We went like 2 weeks ago. I don't know. What do you think they're doing? What is team bonding in an NFL facility?
Well, it doesn't have to be at the facility. So Malarkey used to take them to Fort Campbell and have them like go through some of the I don't want to call it simulations, but the drills essentially that the service members up at Fort Campbell are going through on a regular basis, having and he was, very grounded in the military and stuff like that. Mike Malarkey always took that stuff very seriously and rightfully so. But I think it depends on who the coach is. So Vrabel had him go to Topgolf, right, a couple of times, or they were playing it was some kind of capture the flag game during training camp where they had them all at the hotel and they were paired into teams. I think in Mike's first couple of years, and it was kind of a week-long capture the flag situation.
How about escape room?
I've never done it. I feel like I would hate that.
Oh, I know.
I don't think there's a thing that you could have picked that I would like less than being in a small confined space with the three of you.
Have you ever done a murder mystery dinner party thing?
No. And people are probably looking around at their radio saying, "What the hell is he talking about? Murder mystery dinner party?" But that's the thing.
Oh,
I've
it's a
seen
big
a
time
lot
thing.
of. I've seen people take like birthday trips and rent a cabin in Gatlinburg and do stuff like that.
Megan and I, when Megan was doing her rotation in Lexington as part of her residency, she told me when I was going up to visit her a weekend, she's like, I booked us something. I booked us an activity that we're doing. So, okay. I get there, and she brings me to the lobby of the whatever hotel in downtown Lexington, and we go into this banquet room, and she booked like a murder mystery dinner party in this giant banquet room.
But with like people that you knew or no?
It was like 200 people. No, Megan and I were partners, but there was a ton of people in there. Ton of people. And they it's a whole company, and they act out the murder, right? Like they go, so it's like, it's very comedic, like it's over the top, like acting out, like somebody gets killed.
Sure, because they can't act out a real murder.
And you get some clues and you know, you got to kind of, and then you piece it together, and then you get the sheet of paper, and you, at the end of it, with all the clues, you have to figure out who did it and all of the details. And like the person who did it's like floating around pretending to be a waiter. It's a whole thing. But at the end of it, there's a prize that goes to the top sleuth that they give to the person who best, most concisely details every single clue and comes to the conclusion of who committed the murder and every step along the way. And guess who won? Guess who won in a room of 200 people?
Not you.
Not me. My fiance, Megan.
Oh.
So that's what I'm doing.
Well,
with.
again,
the number one sleuth at a murder mystery dinner party.
Oh my God, that's a bit frightening.
Oh yeah, I can't hide anything.
Okay, very good. That's important in a relationship, I suppose. It's so emblematic of that relationship generally. Jackson, you have something?
What about one of those rage rooms? Have you guys heard of that? Where you just go in and break stuff for like 30 minutes to an hour?
Do that.
I think that's
That does sound
might be our best bet.
I have so many emotions that I would like to take out on the side of a 1950s TV with a baseball bat. If you let me, I am so down for that because we're getting suggestions and also things that we've brought up before, team activities that we just never follow through on.
Hugh on the FNM Bank chat. I will not read that whole name. I've learned my lesson.
Lonzo is out here trying to play games with you.
Hugh says, what happened to the LARPing? We did forget about that. Our LARPing excursion.
We never did. Well, it came to, we have to find something that's easy enough that that's not going to take an overwhelming amount of effort because otherwise we won't do it. Like the idea that we're going to go get costumes and strap a video camera to Jackson and have him follow us around.
That's what I want the Titans rookies to be doing today.
LARPing?
LARPing, yes. I want Tavondre Sweat wearing a suit of armor, running at Jarvis Brownlee.
Oh, my God. Well, perhaps we can take team building suggestions throughout the course of the show. We have a giveaway today, right, for the dumbest thing in sports?
We do.
What do we have?
You get to pick your tickets. It's a choose your own adventure kind of thing with 104.5.
Okay, don't love that. I would like more specifics than just, we have something for you. You get to pick, and then don't tell me what any of the options are.
You got to do the work.
Sounds, NSC, some concerts. It's going to be a good time.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick something for you because that drives me crazy. Don't just give me some nebulous ticket box to pull something out of that nobody understands. No, that is the way that it's going to work today, damn it. This is why we need to go to the Rage Room. Plexico Burress is on the show at 11 o'clock. Coming up next, though, you'll hear from a good deal of the assistant coaches with the Tennessee Titans about what their respective positions have improved upon most this offseason and what the plan is heading into the long summer break. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Lunch right around the corner. Think about any of the conveniently located Middle Tennessee Hattie B's restaurants. We were just at the Charlotte Avenue location last week. Always a great time hanging out with the Hattie B's crew. Interesting conversation hanging out with the Titans crew yesterday. Speaking of crews, they had officials on the field for practice yesterday. It's the first time I think I've seen that this offseason. Always interesting to see, how much of the new stuff that they're even going to be able to get to throughout the course of an OTA practice, where the time restrictions or the time constraints are such, it just makes it hard to implement a lot of stuff. They could have been out there Monday. I wasn't out there Monday. Obviously, it was closed to the media. So perhaps they got a couple of days to look at some things in front of an officiating crew and get the players accustomed to some of the rule changes, including the kickoffs. I'm fascinated to see what that looks like by the time we get to the preseason games.
You haven't seen any drills in regards to kickoffs yet?
No, we have, but it's just kind of hard. It's hard to determine exactly the differences. I mean, you've got a full field for them to out there practice, and they're shooting a ball off the jugs machine up into the air to simulate the kickoff.
But have you seen the way that they're lining up? And I mean, I feel like it'd be very noticeable when you look over. You're like, first reaction would be, "What the hell are they doing over there?"
Well, I think that's been part of it, is trying to figure out, hey, what the hell are they doing over there? Oh, that's the new kickoff setup.
Right.
Like that's been, at least that the first couple of times that I've seen it, it's almost looked foreign to me, the way that they've been lining things up. So I assumed it was like a new kind of drill that they were trying to implement at first, and then we asked a question about it later on in minicamp, and it's like, no, that's the kickoff drill.
I know Jim, in his summary of OTAs yesterday, said Karis Jackson, Kyle Phillips, Jaquan Jackson, Mason Kinsey, and Eric Guerra were all fielding punts during a special teams period. Have you noticed anybody of note fielding kickoffs in those drills?
Pollard.
Which he's done.
To. Yeah, he's definitely done that.
Was really the guy in Dallas for kickoffs before he became
the guy at
the
running
bell cow.
Back. Yeah. So did you think it was interesting the way that Nate Tice described Pollard yesterday as a boom or bust player? Did you happen to catch that during the interview?
Yeah.
I know you were over here knitting a sweater and not participating in the conversation during the course of
crochet.
I appreciate that. Thank you for participating in the radio show. I wasn't yelling at him, Jackson. That's not fair.
We are running that into the ground.
Good.
I can see it.
So, anyway, assistant coaches, they all talked yesterday because it's the last time that we're going to talk to them for basically 7 weeks. And a couple of things that are worth whipping around the room on, because we're not going to be able to talk about every assistant coach throughout the course of this. But I do think that we should start with the quarterbacks, because the quarterbacks are the most noteworthy, the most important. The thing that's going to carry this team into taking a next step is the proper development around not just Levis, but the backup quarterback as well, which appears to be basically Mason Rudolph or bust. So, Bo Hardigree talking about not just Levis, but Rudolph and Willis as well in a couple of minutes after practice yesterday.
Going, with the install and having good questions early in the morning, the next morning, coming into meetings, getting started. I mean, that's a huge part of that'll carry over into the season. Just the preparation and kind of getting on their schedule. I've been pleased with that.
How much have you seen Will kind of take to the mechanical adjustments that you guys are making with him? And he's talked a lot about that this offseason program.
Yeah, it's been great. They've all done a really good job with the drill work, learning the playbook. The most important thing is, the timing, the rhythm, the accuracy, and then we work back and we start getting live bodies moving around a little bit. That the decision making will start showing up. We get to play the preseason games and you tie all that in together and you go from there.
A lot of times I think game manager gets thrown out there as almost a stigma or something with a negative connotation. Yeah. But how much of playing the game and playing the position of quarterback is about managing the game in those situations and taking what's in front of you as opposed to hunting a big play every time?
Sure. You have to know the intent of the play, right? And the big thing for the quarterback position is you have to be a problem solver. You know, when there's something not right, being able to get us out of a bad play into a good play, or something as smart as, you know, saving the play, saving the team, throwing the ball away. All of those things coming into play. And like I'm telling you, that's, you spend the off season putting the playbook together, getting the rhythm, the timing, the footwork, all that tied into what we're doing. And then you start going playing football. And, you know, all that's not just out here on the grass without a defense, you know, and that'll play into preseason in the games. It's super important.
For Malik specifically, what have been the coaching points that you may have seen when you watched him coming in, and then having worked with him now for a couple of months at this point, how has that kind of adjusted throughout the course
Malik's
of this?
Been good. He's, you know, he's, again, like all the other guys, studies really hard outside of the building, puts a lot into it. And then just coming out, running plays maybe that are similar, but maybe new for him, and just kind of getting that timing and, you know, that rhythm, the footwork with it all, you know, it leads into, you know, being an accurate thrower and getting the ball out on time.
That's quarterbacks coach Bo Hardigree talking Will Levis mechanics, Malik Willis's progression, and how a quarterbacks coach views the term game manager and how they go about implementing that and emphasizing the importance of that to all of their players in the room. Some interesting stuff there. Now, Brian Callahan also spoke about Will Levis and their plan for the summer. We'll get to that later on in the noon hour. But anything that jumps out at you specifically from Bo Hardigree? Willis, because you asked me this morning, and I make sure I'm contextualizing it correctly, but basically, does the Willis stuff matter? Is that fair? That was your assertion?
Yeah.
Or your question?
A little bit. I'm going to be honest. Malik Willis is a non-factor for me this season.
He threw one pass yesterday in 7-on-7.
Yeah. I do not factor. I know Brian Callahan said recently that they're going to battle it out for the 2 spot, which is what you say when you have 2 quarterbacks behind your starter. But Malik Willis is a complete non-factor for me in 2024. Mason Rudolph is going to be this team's backup quarterback.
Yes, I think so.
Barring injury, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Is it important? I mean, it's not the most important thing, but it's worth an update. He's still on the roster. He's probably going to be on the roster through training camp. And I think it's worth documenting what the quarterback coach thinks of his progression. He's not going to give us full transparency and saying, well, yeah, he really sucked coming into this thing, and we're doing everything that we can to try and salvage him, right? That's not going to be Bo Hardigree in front of a microphone talking to reporters. But I do think it's worth kind of having the context of how the quarterback coach is viewing this heading into training camp, because if there is any chance that you can get anything out of Malik Willis rather than just a 3rd-round pick sunk cost, then I would be curious to see if any team would sniff around him. So that's the reason why I'd included it yesterday. Let's now hear from Randy Jordan, running backs coach, new Titans running backs coach, talking about not just the idea of Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, but a 3-man running back rotation.
The special teams guy. It's got to be a guy that we can count on, and I really look for that 3rd guy to be able to play on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down and be able to be a plug-and-play guy. So it's a really, really big decision in terms of who is that number 3.
This time of year, what do you see that can kind of give guys an edge? When it's just shorts or just
consistency? Easy. Consistency. Tell them every day, just be consistent, man. If you're a juice guy and you're a guy that we can hook our cables up to and you're getting everybody going, be that guy. But don't be a guy for 3 days all excited and juiced and then you come in one day and I'm like, well who is this guy? You know, and if you're a guy that's a smart guy and you can, you know, pick up pressures and, you know, and no protections and, you know, don't go 2 days and then go 2 days on and 2 days off. You know, just be consistent in everything that you do.
Hassan's missed so much time last year. Just kind of have you seen him adjust, get back into the swing of things?
Oh, man. You know, they've all been really good. Just speaking about Hassan, he's one that I'm really intrigued with. Big backs, right? Yeah. You know, I kind of like coaching those guys, you know, and they have a different type of skill set because, you know, I call it being a bully, you know, and I say, hey, look, God made you that size, let's make sure we let people know that you're the bully on every play, and being that enforcer. And not to say that those smaller guys can't, and not saying that any other backs can't, but for him, he's done a good job absorbing the information and going out and executing.
So he's relished the idea of being the enforcer.
Yeah, I talk to him about it every day. I do, and that's the one thing that I saw when he came out of Michigan. Is a guy that that ran the ball very, very hard. And one of the things I always tell my guys, we ain't never gonna be the nail. We're gonna always be the hammer. And some guys carry a bigger hammer than others, and that's what I want him to do. Is when you out there, you're the hammer, and you're trying to finish every run, every time you get a chance to touch the football.
It's Randy Jordan talking about Hassan Haskins and how he factors into the 3-man running back rotation that they're going to have to consider, because it's going to be 3 of them active on game days. It's not just the 2.
There's going to be quite a competition for that 3rd spot between Haskins, Julius Chestnut, and the 2 UDFAs, Jabari Small and Dylan Johnson.
Jabari Small made a couple of nice plays yesterday.
Dylan Johnson is a fascinating one for me. He's one of the more interesting UDFAs, just from watching him in college, and especially this past season at Washington.
Well, I mean, it's as simple as the medicals. Sounds like.
Sure. Yeah, as far as why he wasn't drafted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, hugely productive player in college.
Oh, yeah.
So, from Randy Jordan, let's now hear from... Who do you want to hear from next? Tyke Tolbert? No, we're going to save Tyke Tolbert for later. Let's hear from Ben Bloom, the outside linebackers coach, on the competition outside of Harold Landry and how Arden Key needs to improve to claim that full-time starting role.
For you guys coming in, you have a couple of dudes in your room who have the opportunity to claim a starting role, a full-time starting role. Yeah. How much have you seen that competition play out even in the early phases?
Well, I think, as a unit, we've identified, what we need to do to help the defense have success. Okay, we have to be really good in the run game, setting edges and closing down the backside when runs away, and then obviously be dominant pass rushers that are affecting the quarterback. Like, that's our job. And we're in coverage a little bit here and there, but I guess there's things that we've identified for each player that, hey, we need to get better at this, and that. So if a guy's like, I got to be more consistent setting the edge, he knows it. I know it. We watch the tape. We work the drills to improve upon those things. On an individual basis, can we improve that? Can we be more consistent in that area? Well, then maybe I can earn that starting role or earn more playing time. So it's really from, that type of approach. What do I need to do better to help the team?
How much have you seen Arden in particular relish that opportunity? He's always got great energy, it seems, when he's out here on the practice field. Is that carried over?
Yeah, Arden's been phenomenal to work with. He's a veteran in the room. We have a young group, but he's a veteran in the room. He's been around the league a long time. He's seen a lot. His energy on the field is contagious, and it's awesome. We're blessed to have that kind of juice around, right? And then what you guys might not see, and I see it every day, I'm standing up in front of the meeting room with the outside linebackers, and it's his professionalism in the meeting room. He's dialed in, he's taking notes, he's asking good questions, he's coaching up the other players, sharing his experience. So it's real leadership, it's real, veteran type of contribution that you need to be great in this league.
So he's not always class.
Terry McCormick there asking about if he's not always class clown. And Ben Bloom followed that up, the outside linebackers coach, by saying, well, you need one, but he's not always the class clown. Not all the time. Go ahead, Jackson.
After watching that, the thought of Ben Bloom and Arden Key interacting on a daily basis made me chuckle a little. Because Ben Bloom is very mild-mannered.
He looks like Seth Rogen.
I didn't want to go there.
Look at why wouldn't you want to go there?
I don't know.
Seth Rogen. Well, he looks like early stages Seth Rogen, still with a little bit of baby fat on him. Seth Rogen.
I don't see it.
What?
I don't see Seth Rogen.
Are you kidding me?
I don't.
You don't think that the outside linebackers coach for the Titans directly resembles Seth Rogen?
No.
Are we looking at the same human being?
I'm looking at his picture on the Titans website. I'm not seeing it.
Okay, well, look at the video that I posted of him in the visor with the glasses on and tell me that that's not damn Seth Rogen.
If I strain,
we don't
I can
have to
see
get
where
bogged
you're going,
down here.
But it's not the first thing that comes to mind. Ben Bloom, outside of Bill Callahan, when we're talking about the most important assistant coaches, outside of coordinators, Bill Callahan's number one, right?
Yeah.
Bill Callahan is number one, no questions asked.
He's probably more important than at least one of the coordinators.
Sure. Is there a case for Ben Bloom, number 2, in terms of what the Titans probably need to get out of their pass rush depth and working with young players like Caleb Murphy, the UDFA from last year, like Jalen Harrell, the 7th-round pick out of Michigan?
I would argue the cornerbacks coach, who is one of the few holdovers from Mike Vrabel's staff.
Sure, but that is one of the more talented rooms on this roster.
Which is why it's so important that they get it right.
But just in
they
terms
have
of
so much talent.
Squeezing everything out of what you have in that room.
Sure, but they're doing that anyway. Like, they don't have a choice. They have no choice but to squeeze everything humanly possible out of that group. Now, can they underachieve to that extent? Sure, it's a possibility. But, like, I'm not putting any great expectations on the Titans' pass rush edge group this year. I'm putting the pressure on the interior because that's where the best players are in Jeff Simmons and theoretically T'Vondre Sweat. And I'm putting the pressure on the cornerback group because they're going to be, it's easier and faster to disrupt the passing game by jamming a receiver than it is for an edge rusher to get off the ball.
Yeah, and that's where they've placed their emphasis in their offseason moves, right? And you need the outside linebacker group to benefit from that, but you need something out of Rashad Weaver and down on the depth chart,
right? You
need
need competency, sure. Ben Bloom is tasked with getting competence out of this group. But I'm, again, relative to expectation for the talent that is there, I'm willing to give Ben Bloom a little bit of grace here because the best player that he's got is Harold Landry. And that, I don't want to say that's all he's got, but relative to the rest of the defense, it is all that Ben Bloom has. Whereas you're talking about L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary in the secondary. And if you want to go 4 deep, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is a pretty nice player as a 5th-round draft pick. When you talk about the interior defensive linemen, the 2 deep of Sweat and Simmons makes a ton of sense. And Sebastian Joseph Day, if he's your 3rd, is solid. He's been a starting player in the league for a long time now.
But I think I have confidence in that cornerback room, regardless of who their position coach is, right? If L'Jarius Sneed is healthy and Roger McCreary and Chido Awuzie have proven to be starter caliber players in this league, Ben Bloom has got young, unproven talent across the board outside of Harold Landry and Arden Key, which we feel like we have a good idea about what those players are in the NFL.
We did the thing that we didn't want to do. We got bogged down.
What do you mean? We hit on every single coach we wanted to.
No, we did not. We did not talk about Bill Callahan, who is you literally just said, Lucas, he's the most important. What do you mean?
The most important
spitting rage at me when I tried to avoid doing the thing that Lucas wanted me to avoid today, which is getting stuck on there's too few of these assistant coaches.
We tried to squeeze in too many.
Well, it was my fault. I brought up the Seth Rogen, but we'll hear from Bill Callahan later on. Lucas has some SEC observations. What are they about?
So, College World Series starts on Friday. We'll hit on that, the SEC teams involved, and also something new, some new news coming out about SEC game times because of who is broadcasting those games in 2024.
That's next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great resource for guys who are getting up there in age or who are just noticing changes with your body, because it happens to all of us as we get up there in years. ED is not something to freak out about, not something to be negative about, but it is something that you want to get addressed right away. And the Tennessee Men's Clinic is exactly the place that you need to go to get your ED and weight loss treatments if that is something that you're struggling with as well. A lot of guys hate going to the doctor, understand that, but the Tennessee Men's Clinic is not your typical doctor's experience. It was created in 2014 to take care of guys just like you. For a decade, the urologists and providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic have helped guys with ED and weight loss, and they now even offer aesthetic enhancements and cosmetic procedures. Their ED and weight loss treatments truly change lives, and with no surgery, they are seeing success rates as high as 90%. So call them today at 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today.
Love that last part. Let me show you what it's all about. College World Series start on Friday, or as I call it, the SEC ACC Invitational. Because of the 8 teams in Omaha, 4 are out of the SEC, 4 out of the ACC.
I thought you were just being exclusive. I thought you were excluding teams that didn't matter in this conversation when you posed to me the poll question that people can vote on at Buck Rising on Twitter. Which conference will win the College World Series, the ACC or the SEC? I am shocked to find out that the College World Series is comprised of only 2 conferences. That's 2 of the Power 4 conferences.
That's it. Even split, 4-4. It could have been 5-3 in favor of the SEC if Georgia had taken care of business and beaten NC State Monday. They didn't. By the way, how about the year NC State is having with men's and women's basketball getting to the Final Four, and they get to the College World Series in baseball. Solid season for the football program. I digress. So of the 8 teams, we have a pretty good chance for some new blood in terms of first-time national champs. Only 2 of the 8 have won a national championship previously. Can we play some trivia here, Buck? Can you tell me, out of Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Texas A&M, and Florida State, thank you, Jackson, NC State, Virginia, and UNC, which 2 programs have a national championship under their belt in college baseball?
Oh, I want to say Virginia.
Yes.
Florida State? Florida does.
Virginia and Florida are the only 2 who have previously won a title. Thank you, Jackson, for the trivia music.
That's all we had.
Tennessee has...
Very unenthralling game of trivia.
Tennessee has played the other 3 teams, the other 3 SEC teams that are in Omaha this season. They are 5-2 collectively against Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Florida. It is Kentucky's first trip to the College World Series. So we'll see if the SEC continues its streak, because the last 4 national champs have been SEC programs. 5 of the last 6 have been SEC programs. And the most impressive thing about it is it's 5 different programs in the last 6 years. LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Florida. So of those teams that have won previously in that 6-year window, Florida is the only one that has made this addition. So an opportunity for Tennessee, Kentucky, or Texas A&M to add to that list, and any one of those teams winning in Omaha would win their first national title. The last ACC champion was UVA. Virginia won it in 2015. They are the only ACC team to win the College World Series since Miami did it back in 1999. So there's going to be a lot of talk about the curse of the 1 seed.
Yep.
Throughout the course of the next couple of weeks.
And for no other reason than Tony Vitello's bringing it up.
Sure. What'd he say? He said, we're playing, I think it was kind of tongue-in-cheek.
No, I know.
Playing with house money, right? 1 seed never wins the College World Series. We're the number 1 overall seed.
Listen, when the coach talks about it openly, the coach... It brings it into the discussion.
Sure, and maybe that's what he's communicating to the team. Maybe that takes the pressure off. Sure. I don't know. But Tennessee opens up against FSU Friday. 6 p.m. is the first pitch. The first game in Omaha is 1 p.m. Friday afternoon with Virginia and North Carolina. So we'll see if Tennessee can't have their best effort in Omaha of the Tony Vitello era in their 3rd trip to the College World Series in the Tony Vitello era. That all starts on Friday. We'll preview that game on Friday a little bit closer to first pitch. Go ahead.
Take a breath. So FSU, they sweep UConn in their super regional. They beat the Huskies 24-4 on Friday, 10-8 in 12 innings on Saturday. They've been 5-0 this postseason. This is the first time, as you mentioned, that they've been to the College World Series since 2019. Was Jameis on that team? No, that was after Jameis.
Yeah, post Jameis. Jameis was, that was like 2013.
No, was it that long ago?
Jameis won the national title with Florida State in football in the 2013 season.
Why do I feel like that's so much more recent? But I guess
it's the same draft class as Marcus.
No, I know. I keep forgetting that Jameis and Marcus are our age, or I guess my age. But how's the BVS before we advance? You can't just gloss over it and try and bury me in college football scheduling windows.
It's house money. It's house money, right? Tony V, we're the 1 seed. 1 seed never wins. We're actually the underdog if you really think about it. Jackson, how's the BVS?
It's bad. I'm scared.
No.
Florida State's hot.
Oh, no.
They're the hot hand.
They're red hot.
That's what I'm saying. I see what you've tried to do in glossing over things, just minor administrative scheduling tweaks and things like that with ESPN and the SEC. Did you see Max Hers, our buddy, sending out tweets complaining that they're doing this 2 weeks before, I guess some kind of media event or something like that Max has to participate in. Either way.
I mean, Tennessee's offense is red hot.
Oh, sure. Listen, even when Evansville had them down 10-5, you could, because the pitching staff for Evansville was not the thing that was going to carry them, and you could tell that right away. It was pretty, you felt pretty tight-chested if you're anybody but a Tennessee fan watching that lineup start to make a comeback late in the game, ultimately not able to do it in game 2, and they have to take it to game 3 where Evansville just gets shelled, but still, it's the most intimidating lineup in the country Tennessee has.
By the way, Drew Beam, the Tennessee pitcher, Murfreesboro native, will be on with Ramon, Kayla, and Will tomorrow morning. So stay tuned for that. Pivoting a bit because, look, I know scheduling, it's not something that's going to dominate a whole hour of conversation on here. But this is notable because this is new. We are so used to the SEC obviously being on CBS and also on ESPN and ABC on ESPN. We're so used to not knowing game times or even game windows until 2 weeks prior, right? Like we will have no idea what time the Tennessee-Florida game is going to be or the Tennessee-Alabama game is going to be, typically until 2 Mondays before the game starts. Now that ESPN has the rights to every SEC game, they have released the game time windows for the entire season. So this came out yesterday, and it comes out in 4 categories. Early, which means noon to 1 Eastern time. So we'll talk about it in Central time for our purposes. Early is 11 a.m. to noon. Afternoon is 2:30 to 3:30. Night is 5 to 7 p.m. kickoff times in that window. And flex, which could be either starting between 2:30 and 4:30 or 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. So we have all of Tennessee's windows. We know the exact kickoff times for the first 3. They host UTC at 11:45 Central Time, Week 1. They play NC State, neutral site game in Charlotte, at 6:30 p.m. Central, Week 2. And they host Kent State at 6:45 p.m. in Neyland Stadium, Week 3. At Oklahoma and at Arkansas, 2 road games, back-to-back after that Kent State game, Weeks 4 and 5. Those are both in the flex category, so will be either afternoon or night on the road. So Josh Heupel's first trip to Oklahoma, since being the offensive coordinator of his alma mater, will either be in the afternoon or at night. Either way, that game is going to be ending with the sun already set. It's going to be electric in Norman that night. 2 night games for Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. They host Kentucky, and they host Mississippi State back-to-back. Both of those will be night games at Neyland. Prior to that back-to-back, Tennessee takes on Florida and Alabama at home. So that's a run of 4 straight home games. Florida, Bama, Kentucky, Mississippi State. Florida and Bama are in the flex category. It'll be either afternoon or night. Kentucky and Mississippi State are going to be nighttime kickoffs in Neyland Stadium. So the potential for 4 night games in Neyland in the SEC, minimum 2 against Kentucky and Mississippi State.
Yeah, so the thing that you're up against, at least in that October 19th window when you'll play Tennessee, is Georgia, Texas. Like that would be the thing that I think would be the more likely flex situation as a night game.
Which one?
The Georgia at Texas game that's in the same window as Alabama at Tennessee.
Oh, okay, yes.
I'm just talking about like games that could also potentially be flexed where Tennessee has the flex designation. They're most likely going to have that night window on October the 12th because the other games are Mississippi State at Georgia, Vanderbilt at Kentucky. Ole Miss at LSU is a night game as well. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how many of these, because home field advantage is absolutely a thing. If you give Vols fans all day to tailgate for a night game, much less 4 of them potentially at Neyland Stadium, that is going to be as raucous an environment. I mean, one of the most raucous SEC nighttime environments is Death Valley 1.
I think Death Valley is largely considered number 1. Yes, Tennessee fans listening will say it's Neyland, but I think general public would say LSU is number 1.
I think, but Neyland deserves to be a part of that conversation. And I'm only speaking from one game of experience because I went to a 3:30 game against Florida, and I thought that my spine, like my spinal cord was like shaking for how loud it was throughout the course of that game. Well, that is interesting. Okay, those are the SEC observations. Coming up next, the dumbest thing in sports this week. All right, Jackson, right now, you're going to pick a prize that we're going to give away because I'm not doing this nebulous ticket bucket thing that you keep throwing in front of me.
We're doing the bucket.
Yeah, that's not how this works. What we have concerts, we have Nashville SC tickets, we have sound. Who are we to tell people what they should want out of this?
The people giving the things away. We actually get to tell them what they're going to win.
It is for Father's Day, where we give them the opportunity to pick, and it's a ton of good stuff.
Stop trying to play God.
The dumbest thing in sports this week, 615-737-1045. Apparently, I can't tell you what you're going to win, but you're going to find out coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans wrapped up the offseason program Tuesday with the final day of OTAs. Some players will remain in the building for team bonding activities today, but the offseason break has officially begun, and the team will reconvene in late July for training camp. Assistant coaches met with the media after practice, and offensive line coach Bill Callahan praised the work and progress of first-round rookie left tackle J.C. Latham, but said the real progress will come when the pads come on.
Nothing really comes to fruition until you're in training camp and everything's live. You know, the speed's faster, the looks are quicker, nobody's pulling off of blocks, so you're going to have to finish blocks. So it becomes a little more different, obviously, when you get into that phase of preseason.
This morning, the Los Angeles Clippers announced that NBA legend and Hall of Famer Jerry West has passed away. The legendary player and executive that is the inspiration for the NBA logo was 86 years old. For other foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Sure is. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you call that number and you give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, there's a variety of different good ones to pick from. Always is. We will give you, Jackson, what? What am I giving away? Give me something specific that I can tell people that I'm going to give them. Give me one thing from this godforsaken prize bucket that drives me insane. One thing.
There's one thing. It's a choose-your-own-adventure. You get NSC, Nashville Sounds, a plethora of concerts coming to Ascend Amphitheater, Bridgestone Arena, all these different concert venues. It's going to be a wonderful time. It's a choose-your-own-adventure for Dad's Week, so that is our one thing we are giving away today for the dumbest thing in sports.
I hate you so much.
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
737-1045 is the number. Yeah, but nobody knows what's in there because it's just a nebulous prize bucket.
You're doing a great job selling this.
I'm pissed. I just want to pick. Just give me one thing to give away.
You're pissed?
Yeah, because it's so stupid. It's so stupid, the idea that there's just some kind of nebulous thing that people have to think about. Oh, do I want to do this with no dates? In what month? What are we talking about? Give me one thing on one date to give away.
So uncharacteristic of you to make a huge deal and be pissed about something.
You don't want our listeners to be able to pick their prize?
I want them to have an easy time knowing what it is. That's all I want. I want clarity. I don't think that's too much to ask. Is it? It seems to be. It seems to be too much to ask. The dumbest thing in sports this week is the prize bucket. No. The dumbest thing in sports this week is the whole level of discourse around this clip that comes from Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach. Now, let me give you the genesis and the background before you hear from Tyke Tolbert. At some point during mandatory minicamp, Trevor Maddich, who does college football games on ESPN, was at mandatory minicamp. He had said that basically, to paraphrase, that he would cut Treylon Burks on the spot after watching a couple of minicamp practices and seeing the level of effort that Treylon Burks brought to the minicamp practice, in particular the drills that Trevor Maddich happened to be watching. Now, why do you care what a college football analyst has to say about Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks? I don't know. It made the rounds last week, okay? So much so that Tyke Tolbert feels the need to address it. This is Titans wide receiver coach Tyke Tolbert addressing what it is that Trevor Maddich had to say. Jackson, are you ready for this, or are you on the phone?
Great. You know, effort's been good. One of the things that somebody said something about his effort in practice the other day, the one thing I would mention that a lot of those guys come straight from special teams, and they're running like 100 yards up and down the field. And when they get to my period, my individual period, we have only 8 minutes. So what I tell them to do is they can tone it down a little bit, go through the route technique part of it, not so much speed, because after 8 minutes, we go back full speed with the routes on there with the quarterbacks. So some of that, I give him a little leeway because especially like on the kickoff team or punt team as a gunner, he's taking more reps, probably twice as many reps as rookies are. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of a break when he gets to my particular area. As far as running full speed technique, I won't waver on that. But as far as going full speed in my drills, I don't have him do that on some days when they're doing a lot of running on special teams. So some of that.
So Tyke Tolbert's saying, yeah, the speed where somebody said that they would cut him for going half speed is a drill that I told him to go half speed. That's the dumbest thing in sports this week. It's so wildly irresponsible to go in front of a microphone and just without any context whatsoever, without talking to the coaching staff about the drill that you saw, to say, yeah, I'd cut him on the spot. I don't want to talk about Treylon Burks anymore. Truly, I don't. I want to see if they use him on special teams. I want to see if he can have a Cordero Patterson type career twist, a former first-round pick himself, and now that we're changing the return rules, why can't Treylon Burks have a new career bloom out of this opportunity? For somebody to just whip around and say, yeah, I'd cut him on the spot, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't care how much more football you know or how much more football life experience that you have, because there is no disputing that Trevor Maddich knows infinitely more about football than I. He has far more life experience in the world of football than I. But to do so without context is idiotic. Do better. That's the dumbest thing in sports this week.
There's some good stuff this week. That is a good one. Tell me if you think this one ups it. Packers running back Josh Jacobs. That's one of those moves that is so easy to forget, right? Oh, yeah, Josh Jacobs. He's a Packer now.
I completely forgot he was a Packer until you said Packers running back Josh Jacobs.
Isn't it weird? Week 1, Packers-Eagles playing in Brazil, as we know, in São Paulo. So Josh Jacobs joined Chris Long's podcast last week, and he said that players are being told that they're not supposed to wear green while they're in Brazil during that trip as a safety precaution, because it is a color that is associated with violent gangs. That is inaccurate. The NFL has come out and said that that is inaccurate. And Josh Jacobs, to his credit, has come out and said,
walked it back.
I was misinformed. Apologize, Brazil. See you soon. Yes, that is an inaccurate statement. So this stems from, I don't know where Josh Jacobs picked this up. It got misconstrued somewhere along the way, but they're playing in Corinthians Arena. Corinthians, huge soccer club in Brazil based in São Paulo. An arch rival of Corinthians is Palmeiras, another huge club in Brazil, the club that my uncle and my family supports. Palmeiras wears green. So typically when you're at Corinthians Arena for a Corinthians game, you don't want to wear green because do you want to wear crimson at a Tennessee home game? No, probably not. Unless you're an Alabama fan and Bama is there playing. But typically you're not wearing crimson.
Oh, I thought you were asking me because crimson and cream is Indiana.
Oh, well, you know what I mean.
Okay.
So this is the dumbest thing in sports this week. Green is one of the foremost colors on the Brazilian flag. No, wearing green in the country of Brazil does not make you associated with violent gangs. Josh Jacobs, who again, to his credit, walked it back and acknowledged that he was misinformed.
They said that the part of Brazil that we're going to, you can't even wear green at. I guess something to do with the gangs and stuff.
So a conclusion he reached on his own. They are just going to a arena in which the rival of that team happens to wear green.
There's a Michael Signora, who's the NFL spokesperson, did respond the following day, debunking Jacobs' claims, of course, saying, no, of course they haven't been told that they can't wear green.
Imagine like somebody who's never seen college football that's going to Knoxville for the first time. Yeah, they say you can't wear crimson in there, something to do with violent gangs or something. That's basically what this was.
That's the dumbest thing in sports this week.
I'm going with, they're banning an American icon this July 4th. Joey Chestnut can't compete in the hot dog eating contest. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Is it really going to impact the ratings?
This is a national travesty.
Now wait.
This will impact the ratings.
Just wait. Wait a second. Just wait. Do you know that definitively? Because you're saying it like it's gospel, okay?
I won't be watching.
When
Joey Chestnut is to hot dog eating as Caitlin Clark is to women's basketball right now.
Do not do that to me today. I had no Caitlin Clark in the show rundown. I'm not doing that again today. When Kobayashi passed the mantle down to Joey Chestnut, did the ratings drop off? And I'm asking genuinely.
I have no idea.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You guys are telling me that Joey Chestnut is going to impact the most disgusting national. Is there anything more disgusting that we do as a country? Anything than the national hot dog eating contest? I can't think of a thing that is more where you have a splatter guard in front of people because they're dunking the hot dogs in water before ingesting them because it helps you compress them in your disgusting body. I can't think of anything that I don't care that Joey Chestnut's not in it. I wasn't watching it anyway. There is nothing that is more likely to gross me out than that godforsaken hot dog eating contest.
Now, the context here, because Joey Chestnut put out a thread on Twitter saying he was gutted to learn from the media. He learned from the media that he will be banned from Nathan's hot dog eating contest after 19 years. The greatest competitive eater ever will be banned. He said, I love competing in that event. I love celebrating America with my fans all over this great country. God. He said, to set the record straight, I do not have a contract with Major League Eating or Nathan's, and they are looking to change the rules from past years as it relates to other partners I can work with. This is apparently the basis on which I'm being banned, and it doesn't impact the July 4th event. So I believe this is because he is doing endorsements
for a vegan hot dog company.
Vegan hot dogs, yes. Yeah. And Nathan said, not on our watch.
We want you to eat all of the processed meat.
He continued, sadly, this is the decision Nathan's and Major League Eating are making, and it will deprive the great fans of the holiday's usual joy and entertainment. To my fans, I love you and appreciate you. Rest assured that you'll see me eat again soon.
That is so gross.
Stay hungry, he said. This is a national travesty.
Stop it.
And we need to pen a strongly worded letter to the president or Congress or whoever oversees this event.
I have my fiery email ready.
You think that Biden would win himself some points in the election if he decided to pardon Joey Chestnut from his vegan wrongdoing? You think that would do him some good in the polls or something like that? God,
worth a shot.
I appreciate that Joey Chestnut, and he has to. He's a legitimate competitor. I'm not dismissing what it is that I am dismissing what it is that Joey Chestnut does for a living. It's disgusting, and I wish it would go away. But
you wish you could be as good a radio host as Joey Chestnut is at eating hot dogs.
Well, sure, he's excellent. I'm not disputing his excellence. I'm just saying the thing that he is excellent at disgusts me to my core. All right, dumbest thing in sports this week. You get to pick from the nebulous Dad's Day, Father's Day prize bucket, whatever the hell it is that Jackson has back there. Apparently, it's good enough for some of you to call in to give us the dumbest thing in sports this week. So we'll do that and talk about what Will Levis will be doing with the next couple of months coming up next.
Forget for diddling.
Welcome back to the show. We're fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you would like to join the discussion, Bert, get the hell out of my studio right this second. Out! Out! We have things to do. Just constantly hovering like a bad smell.
Titans reporter Terry McCormick has tweeted the show.
Okay. What does Terry have to say? Is he yelling at us because we're not talking enough baseball?
We were talking about Joey Chestnut being banned from the hot dog eating contest by Major League Eating. And Terry tweeted, does the existence of Major League Eating mean that somewhere out there exists minor league eating, filled with prospects waiting to be called up? And that image is so funny to me, of like a AAA minor league eater.
Like the Savannah Bananas.
But with hot dogs.
But it's an eating team. The Houston Hot Dogs or something like that. I don't know. Houston, probably too big of a city. I love the idea, Terry. Terry McCormick, of course, of Main Street Media, will need some investigative journalism done on this post-haste. So, Terry, report back to us, and you can be the show's minor league eating correspondent.
I know I said that this is a national travesty, and it is, because Joey Chestnut is the GOAT of Major League Eating.
I think it's not that deep.
I don't know what I would prefer to see. To see how long Joey Chestnut could go on, because he's only 40. Like, could he be doing this at 70? Just destroying people, eating like 40, 50 hot dogs, or whatever he does in the span of a couple of minutes?
There's a part of me that wants to make a very, very morbid joke that I will not.
Or is it good for Major League Eating that Joey Chestnut maybe is riding off into the sunset?
This is the Nick Saban leaving college football is good for college football theory.
Parity has now returned, I feel like, to professional eating, to hot dog eating.
It's like conference realignment.
It's exactly like that.
I don't want to talk anymore about Joey Chestnut. I don't care that he's not going to be able to eat 70 hot dogs this year. I just can't get myself to care about it. But I can care about giving some prizes away to some of the callers for the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's start with Kathy. And remember, stay on hold so we can get back in touch with you to let you know that you've won. What's up, Kathy?
Hey there. Well, I think it's pretty dumb how they let the Lakers let LeBron run things around there. It's probably why they didn't get Hurley.
It's probably a big reason why he's not going. Thank you for the call, Kathy. Why Hurley's not taking the Lakers job is just because he's not going to be able to control as much. And coaches at their core are all control freaks, and Dan Hurley thinks that, and is, the most successful college basketball coach going right now as the defending back-to-back national champion. So it's embarrassing for the Lakers brand. It's certainly dumb for the Lakers. And didn't you tell me there was some tinfoil hat conspiracy going around about them planting the Hurley thing just to kind of make it look like they tried to get Dan Hurley before they just go ahead and hire J.J. Redick anyway?
There's been some talk.
The dumbest thing in sports this week is you not being able to turn on your microphone before you talk into it.
I haven't done it in quite some time. There is chatter about that on social media. The idea that, yes, the Hurley thing was just a big ruse so that they wouldn't look as dumb for going straight to J.J. Redick.
I would love if a professional sports organization was actually that stupid. John is up next. What's up, John?
So the Chicago White Sox are having a historically bad season. And in an attempt to impose their misery on the rest of the baseball world, their fans are having a big social media push to get their catcher, Martin Maldonado, written in for the All-Star game. The guy's hitting .078. He couldn't even fail a blood alcohol test with that batting average. I think that's the dumbest thing in sports.
So that they're just trying to bog down the proceedings by rigging the vote. I'm not gonna lie, John. I kind of love it.
I kind of respect it.
I kind of love it.
They're doing a bit, like they're making a bit out of how bad their season is. I really appreciate that.
Now, famously, we do not care about baseball as a show, so we are the anarchists, and John probably cares about baseball that way. So I don't want to. I understand what he's saying, but there is a part of me that kind of loves that.
Well, we must protect the integrity of the All-Star game.
Hey, you know what? Baseball, though, I'm kind of with protecting the integrity of the All-Star game. It's the only damn All-Star game that matters. I don't care about the NBA All-Star game. The Pro Bowl, you cannot get the Pro Bowl out of my life fast enough. Truly. Other than, take it back to Hawaii, make it a week-long vacation for everybody and have them do dumb stuff like they're doing on television with Peyton and Eli anyway.
Yeah, the Pro Bowl is out of your life. They're playing flag football.
No, it's great. That's fine. It's, it's fun for them. ESPN can get the television money out of it that they need to. And, the people that care about actually watching something like that can watch that. But, I am kind of with protecting the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. It's the only one that really matters anymore. Phil is up next. Hey, Phil.
How's it going? Thanks for taking my call, Buck. I got to tell you, the most frustrating thing is Tom Brady's pants auctioning off for $89,000. It started at $10,000 in a game that he lost. I mean, at first it was the sand they was auctioning off. Now it's his pants. Next it'll be his boxers. I mean, listen, I had to scrape into my savings to get a case of Miller Lite, and you're selling his pants for $89,000? What's going on, Buck? I'm lost. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. Always good to hear from you, Phil. We got to get Phil a Miller Lite sponsorship.
It's the pants from his last game as a Buck.
Are they going for more because it was against the Cowboys? Are the Cowboys so strong as a brand that Brady losing? Because it's not even Patriots Tom Brady. And I know Bucks Tom Brady did win a Super Bowl and has the records because he continued to play beyond his Patriots career. But I mean, $89,000 for a pair of pants in a losing effort, that's pretty wild. Goody is the last submission, and then we'll move on to Will Levis stuff.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
So, Buck, I'm going to call you un-American for not loving Joey Chestnut in the Nathans contest.
That's fine.
Any SEC team color is a gang. I don't want to hear anything other. And Jackson, LeBron James is the dumbest thing in sports because he controls the Lakers and they aren't good at all.
Eat it, Jackson.
Damn, a shot at everybody.
Yeah,
he didn't even want the prize. He just wanted to take a shot at you.
And you. Called you un-American.
Well, what are you going to do?
Lucas, the only one unscathed.
Don't worry. The chat had plenty of fun with him and Dixie last week.
You mean Mrs. Normus?
That's correct.
Mr. or Mrs. We don't know.
Don't assign a gender to them. Anyway, who wins?
Some good ones there.
John.
Okay. What are you giving John? What's John's prize, Jackson?
John gets to pick.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, John's was the funniest. Although I always enjoy Phil chiming in. Phil had the better submission. The Brady pants thing for $89,000 is dumb, but John had the funniest.
Well, should we do it this way? Should we give Phil the Feed Your Flock package and John the nebulous prize Dad's Day bucket? All right, your silence is excellent. Thank you for contributing to the radio show. Both of you distribute the prizes and let me talk about Will Levis before I scream.
Yeah, Jackson, do your thing.
Just you delegating now that you're on this side of things. Unbelievable. So, Will Levis, heading into the offseason. Joe, I did my Blaine Bishop hit yesterday with the afternoon show instead of Thursday because yesterday we had practice. They wanted updates, so we said, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it on Tuesday and move it up a couple of days this week. And Hunk, who was in hosting yesterday for B-Hop, said or asked me how comfortable Will Levis looked. How much more comfortable Will Levis looked from the start to the finish of this offseason program. I said, well, comfort's not really the word that I would use because they're asking him to do a bunch of new stuff. And we've talked about the idea of experimenting in the offseason program. Brian Callahan's talked about that, how they want them to be more aggressive, take chances in practice. That's your opportunity to make these mistakes where they won't cost you down and distance, field position, turnovers, whatever. So he's making progress for sure, but it's a different kind of situation. So comfortable, I think he's comfortable. I think he's very sure of himself. I think that he's comfortable in the leadership role. I think he's embracing all of that. And it's clear that he has the command over, he has the attention of his teammates, which is the important thing, the most important thing, as the starting quarterback, the undisputed starting quarterback for the first time in his professional career. But, the whole process hasn't necessarily been comfortable. And I think that's okay. I think you're looking for him to be a little bit uncomfortable as they add the level of footwork changes that they've made or working on his throwing mechanics that we've talked about. You heard from Bo Hardigree at the start of the show. So, for him heading into the offseason program, There's a couple of different things to keep an eye on. One, he's got his own quarterback coach. He's got his own trainer, and just as Derrick Henry had his own strength and conditioning trainer in the offseason, or, I'm sure any number of corners or defensive linemen have their own trainers to keep them busy and working out through the course of 7 weeks. Now, it might not be all the same drills and all the same footworks and all the same mechanical stuff that they're being instructed on in practice. So what you'll hear from Brian Callahan here in just a second when Jackson has a moment to pull the audio is what their approach to managing all of that is. But for the most part, is it okay if Will Levis doesn't necessarily look comfortable right now? Because I think it, from top to bottom, like the most comfortable. Like not everything's perfect during the offseason. Because my contention is it's not supposed to be.
Well, he's comfortable in terms of his place in the team, right? And his voice. Like he was wearing that QB1 shirt at his press conference the other week. And he said, I probably wouldn't have worn this a year ago when I'm here as a freshly drafted rookie and Ryan Tannehill is the clear-cut starter, and I'm going to battle with Malik Willis to be the 2. So he is more comfortable probably with his standing in that building, but there's also an entire new offense being thrown at him and new parts and pieces around him and new coaches to interact with. So, yes, like there is a balance there of comfort in where you stand and your voice in things and being able to give and receive feedback and work with your coaches and your teammates. But there's going to be an uncomfortability that comes with learning a new offense and adjusting your footwork and all of the little mechanical things that we've heard Will Levis and Brian Callahan go in depth about.
So let's hear from Brian Callahan on what Will Levis's summer program will look like.
Yeah, he's got his process. He's going to take a little time for himself, spend some time with his family, and then he's got a little trip with some of those receivers planned, a little bit of a work bonding and enjoyment trip, if you will, chance for those guys to go get their minds right for the season. And then I know he'll take a little bit of time off of throwing just because that's usually what quarterbacks do, and then they come back in July and start ramping up probably 2 weeks before training camp to get ready to roll. So he's got a good process in place. He's got a plan for the summertime, which is good. It shows some leadership and some ownership over his process away from here, which is good. So I feel really good about his plan.
Is there a particular message you want to ingrain within him going into those?
Other than what we've talked about every day, no, I just think for him, the most important part is keeping that urgency and tempo and how he plays. Keep playing faster, keep playing with more confidence, and that comes with more reps. I really was happy with how he progressed, learning a brand new way of playing football this year, and there's going to be plenty more reps in training camp in the preseason, and the key is to be ready to roll in September playing at the speed that you got to play at the position in the NFL. And he's improved every day he's come out here, and it's really all I can ask of him at this point is to keep getting better over the course of the summer and the training camp, and we'll be ready to roll. I feel really good about where he's at.
So that is head coach Brian Callahan talking about Will Levis's progress and the plan for him in the offseason program. So I think there's stages to this, right? I don't know that Will Levis has had the same quarterback coach throughout the course of his entire collegiate and into his professional career. I'm sure you meet different people along the way, and that they come with different, evaluations of the talent and how to best maximize it. Because I know for a while he was working with a guy named Travis Meyer, who I think he knew by way of his home state of Connecticut, or at least was a prominent quarterback trainer in Connecticut. So I don't know if he's specifically working with him now or if he's exploring other personal quarterback coach options in the offseason. Do you have breaking news?
Aaron Wilson reporting that, according to his agent, veteran offensive lineman Jerron Christian has been signed by the Tennessee Titans. So Christian, who is a 27-year-old offensive lineman, Florida native, played his college football at Louisville, was a third-round draft pick, was last with the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans.
So, wait, most recently with Cleveland?
He was with Cleveland and Houston in 2023. So at some point he was dealt to Houston, but has experience playing under Bill Callahan.
Bottom of the roster churn is what that feels like. Now, it's notable that it's the offensive line group because they're clearly seeing things and getting ready for training camp and making the necessary adjustments to that group, which is why I said yesterday, we can have as many takeaways from the offseason program as we want about who's taking the bulk of the reps at right guard or who should be the favorite to start at right tackle. And the coaching staff have a completely different takeaway when they go back into the meeting rooms and discuss this stuff amongst themselves. Because I have no idea who Bill Callahan is going to determine to be the 5 most cohesive offensive linemen that need to start in front of Will Levis heading into the season. I feel pretty good about the idea of Sadiq Charles as the starting right guard. And Leroy Watson feels like Leroy Watson or John Ojukwu feel like the competition is between them at right tackle, but we could get to training camp and then trot out a completely different starting 5, and all of us look around and be like, I didn't have that one on my bingo card.
This is tackle depth, and he was drafted to Washington when Bill Callahan was the offensive line coach of the Washington Commander Skins and the assistant head coach, for what it's worth.
The Commander Skins.
Isn't that what we call them?
The Command Skins football team. I call them the Commies now.
However you want to call it. He was the starting left tackle at the start of the 2020 season for Washington and was replaced by Trent Williams and then was traded to San Francisco.
Pretty good to be replaced by Trent Williams.
During the following offseason. Now, he's dealt with injuries before. He's dealt with knee injuries on and off throughout the course of his career. He was on the Texans practice squad at the start of last season, and then he was signed by the Browns practice squad and was signed to the active roster in early November of 2023. So experience with Bill Callahan at multiple stops.
615-737-1045 is the number. Adam Weber on YouTube, where you can also interact with the show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you're hanging out on YouTube today, subscribe to the channel. Adam says he's just another guy for training camp and preseason. Yeah, but if you're a Titans offensive lineman, we can't just have the just another guy conversation, because there's been too many different conversations about offensive linemen that have resulted in just another guy playing meaningful snaps.
And we haven't talked at all about who's the backup going to be at left tackle.
Jalen Duncan.
He's firmly in the competition for the starting right tackle job.
Is also, I think, I would expect Jalen Duncan to be a swing tackle.
Sure. And whoever loses out on that right tackle job will probably have that expectation put on them. Mm-hmm. But this is left tackle depth. He started 9 games for Cleveland in 2023.
And Cleveland, dealing with all manner of injury and having to piece it together, and having Bill Callahan to be able to do it made their lives a lot easier en route to making the postseason with Joe Flacco. So,
career high for him, starting 9 games last season.
Worth keeping up on. So, yeah, you can look at offensive linemen that you haven't heard of as just another guy. But again, I'm promising you that just another guy is probably going to play meaningful snaps for you at some point this season. And the coaching staff is very, very cognizant of that. You've got some headlines for me?
I got headlines.
All right, they're coming up next. Are you not able to enjoy this summer as much as you want because of joint pain? It's the best time of year for being outdoors, but not if your shoulders, knees, back, or hips are hurting. Don't suffer any longer. Non-surgical joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics, so you should call them today. They are the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. I'm talking lasting joint pain relief with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics advanced treatments harness your own body's ability to restore and repair that damaged joint tissue so you can walk, run, hike, play golf, and move again pain-free. QC Kinetics is under the leadership of former orthopedic surgeon Dr. Mitchell Shinecup, a true pioneer in regenerative medicine. Their advanced protocols have enabled tens of thousands of patients to reclaim their mobility. So stop putting it off and take action right now. Live your best life again with QC Kinetics. Call for a free consultation at 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. We are going to go through the Titans offseason. Did they do enough to set this team up for legitimate success in 2024 over the course of the last couple months? We're going to go point by point later on in the final hour of the show. In the meantime, we have NFL headlines.
It's time for headlines with Lucas Panzica.
It gets worse and worse every week.
Quarterback Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets and edge rusher Hassan Reddick are skipping the Jets' 2-day mandatory minicamp with unexcused absences, and they are subject to fines, according to head coach Robert Saleh. This has made the waves in NFL media. It seems to be the top story at the moment. Robert Saleh was meeting with the media the other day, Jackson. Do we have him talking about Rodgers' absence?
No, so we've got 2 inexcused absences. One obviously being Hassan. Spoke to him over the weekend. Appreciate the dialogue. He's in a really good place mentally, working his tail off like we already know, and but he's choosing to sit out this one inexcused. The second one is Aaron. Aaron and I spoke before OTA started. He's been very good in communication. He's been here the entire time. It's inexcused, but he had an event that was very important to him, which he communicated.
Both are inexcused.
Both inexcused. Yes.
So are they getting fined?
They're both subject to the CBA fine schedule.
Should Jets fans care that Aaron Rodgers is going to be absent from mandatory minicamp unexcused?
So Saleh's saying there that it was an event that was very important to him. So what are we talking? We're talking ayahuasca? We're talking darkness retreat?
No idea what that is.
You know,
that's a wide range. I mean, that is
dolphin sex sound therapy for his Achilles, all that kind of stuff.
Probably not a family reunion, and maybe any one of those things.
That was a mean joke by you.
It was a cheap shot.
That's normally my department. I'm not accustomed to that from you.
Should Jets fans care that Aaron Rodgers has an unexcused absence for mandatory minicamp? I think the answer is no.
I think they should.
I think the answer is no.
Well, okay, so here's how you have to parse this. Do you care that Aaron Rodgers is running your team as a Jets fan? Do you care at all? Does it give you any pause, any hesitancy, anything? Because if you don't care, then you don't care about this, because Aaron Rodgers is running the show. So if Aaron Rodgers says that he needs to do this to be the best version of Aaron Rodgers, then by God, let Aaron Rodgers go do it. So if you're that kind of Jets fan, you're probably good. If you're the kind of Jets fan that hates all of this, as you should as a football fan, I can be both pro player empowerment and also see some of the issues with one player like Aaron Rodgers having more control as an NFL player than any other player in the sport, right? We're agreed upon that. Aaron Rodgers has the most control over his own situation of any other NFL player right now.
Yes.
So if I was a Jets fan, I would probably fall in the category of, no, I hate this because I hate him running the team from the jump, and I hate that he brought back Robert Saleh and Todd Downing and Nathaniel Hackett and all these other slaps and things like that. So I would think it's a big deal, but I get why there's Jets fans who are like, whatever.
I would think it's a big deal if this is becoming a trend, but it's not. Aaron Rodgers, to his credit, has shown up to everything else, right? Have we not seen him at every voluntary OTA and other minicamp stuff and the revitalization of his love for football and all of those things? He has been there at the forefront. He's not skipping every Jets offseason practice or program. It's the first time we've really seen something like this, that Aaron's not going to be here. Now, Diana Rossini reported that he is skipping all of Jets' mandatory minicamp this week because he prefers to be somewhere else away from football. Colin Cowherd on his show this morning said he's on vacation. So that seems to be the thing, according to multiple reports, that is very important to him. So, with that information in mind.
You remember when Brady dipped out on training camp to go try and save, well, we don't know that it was to go try and save his marriage, but it was basically to go try and save his marriage. And that was the first time that Tom Brady had done anything like that. This is so much more ridiculous than that. This is just Aaron Rodgers wants to take mental time and space away from football when the hard part of football hadn't even started yet. Now he's been through this a million times, and he probably doesn't need it. But still, come on. What's the other headline?
Your season hinges on him, regardless of if he shows up at minicamp or not.
Oh, my God.
Amari Cooper, also unexcused and absent from Browns' mandatory minicamp. Head coach Kevin Stefanski met with the media, said he would not say if it was contract related, but he did say that there has, quote, been a dialogue between Amari Cooper and the team. This is the final year of Amari Cooper's contract with the Cleveland Browns.
It's notable because he wants more money.
He's 29.
And they've just paid Jerry Jeudy.
He'll be 30 in 5 days.
Who's wide receiver 3 right now? Because the former Jets player,
Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore is not really factored in that much to that wide receiver competition.
Wonder if they need something out of Cedric Tillman this year. But they did acquire Jerry Jeudy in the offseason.
I think it's notable because they're saying, hey, we've already got an option that we've paid at wide receiver, and he's cheaper than you're going to be.
The former Purdue receiver, David Bell.
Purdue.
You like Purdue?
I like Purdue better. I like that much better.
You got to hit Dennis Kelly with that next time.
Purdue.
He's talking trash. David Bell, the former Purdue receiver. Cedric Tillman, the former Tennessee receiver. Donovan Peoples-Jones, is he still a Jet?
You mean a Brown?
Or Brown, yeah.
I think so. I want to say so. I think he would still be on his rookie contract.
No, he's a Lion.
Oh, really?
He is a Detroit Lion.
Okay.
So that's what the pecking order kind of looks like. It's Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, David Bell.
That all the headlines?
Jamar Chase is present at Bengals minicamp. T. Higgins is not. He has not signed his franchise tender, so he is not subject to fines at the moment. And Travis Kelce says he will play, quote, until the wheels fall off. Kelce will turn 35 this season.
That's old for a tight end.
In October. It is amazing what he is doing at this age.
Well, no, he's clearly got a plan, right? Because he wasn't Travis Kelce superstar for a good portion of the regular season, and then what'd you see in the postseason? He's taking contact the way that he didn't do all year long. He's load managing throughout the course of the NFL season as a 35-year-old tight end, and of course that's completely acceptable. Mercedes Lewis doing it at, what, is he 40? He's 40 years old, Mercedes Lewis, still getting jobs out here?
Yeah, he has just been signed by the Chicago Bears at age 40.
Is that his second stint as a Bear?
No, it's his first. That's the amazing thing. 40 years old, drafted in 2006.
Yeah.
This is only his third NFL team. Isn't that amazing? Jacksonville from 06 through 2017.
Well, the Jacksonville stint is what I know him from.
A decade in Jacksonville. Green Bay for 4 or 5 years. And this will be his first year in Chicago.
That is crazy. B. French says of the Jets conversation earlier, I'm all for the controversy, allegations, conspiracies surrounding anything related to the Jets, just because the Titans' first home game is against them. Get in the darkness, A-Raj. Yeah, I mean, week 2, New York at Tennessee is a fun game from a storylines perspective, certainly. And at any time you can talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers definitely makes himself. Aaron Rodgers is he's starting to do the LeBron thing where he just makes he's adept at finding a way to make every NFL conversation about Aaron Rodgers. The same way LeBron has hijacked a little bit of the NBA Finals conversation with the coaches hiring. Those the headlines?
Those are the headlines. This will be Mercedes Lewis's second year in Chicago, by the way.
I have his stats from last year if you guys would like to.
I would like them.
4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown.
That's fine. He's there to be a human tree trunk. He's a blocking tight end. He's Frankenstein's monster out there. All you got to do is get in somebody's way. And he's been doing it for a long enough time, damn near 20 years in the NFL. So all credit in the world to Mercedes Lewis.
See him in week 1.
Okay. Coming up next, Brian Callahan went on the Adam Schefter podcast. He talked a lot about Calvin Ridley in this wide receiver room. We're going to get into that. Also, an offseason in review. Did the Titans do enough to set themselves up for success in 2024? The final hour is next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Titans wrapped up the offseason program Tuesday with the final day of OTA. Some players remain in the building for team bonding activities today, but the offseason break has officially begun. The team will reconvene again in late July for training camp. Titans did make a move initially reported by Aaron Wilson, signing veteran offensive lineman Jerron Christian, who started 9 games for the Cleveland Browns under offensive line coach Bill Callahan this past season. Christian is 27 years old, was a third-round pick of Washington in 2018. Tonight, Game 3 of the NBA Finals. The series moves to Dallas. The Boston Celtics lead it 2-0. Celtics center Kristaps Porzingis is listed as questionable with a left leg injury. Tip-off tonight is at 7:30. Also in NBA news, this morning it broke that NBA legend and Hall of Famer Jerry West has passed away. The legendary player and executive that is the inspiration for the NBA logo was 86 years old. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Wide receivers have been the highlight, easy to say, of the Titans' offseason program. If it's not the offensive line coach who you just can't get enough of and his spectacular sled drills and J.C. Latham and all the power and strength that you see and the progress that he's making. By the way, he's making significant progress, and you're going to hear from Bill Callahan about that later on. The wide receivers are probably 1B if the offensive line's been 1A. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, the two of the three who are going to start this year are newcomers to the offense and very, very quickly getting their fingerprints over everything that Brian Callahan wants to do. Of course, Tyler Boyd coming in, making the offense that much more viable, easier to disperse or disseminate to all the new players on the team, having somebody like Tyler Boyd who's been in the offense for several years. Every year, I think that Brian Callahan, of the 5 seasons that he was the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati, was Tyler Boyd a part of the picture there. So, anytime you hear Brian Callahan talk about the deployment of the wide receivers, I think it gets Titans fans excited, especially when you hear a clip like this, courtesy of the Adam Schefter podcast. Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, talking specifically about Calvin Ridley.
I remember there was a head coach a couple of years ago that told me that he thought Calvin Ridley might be the best wide receiver in the league. That was what he thought.
You know, I think had Calvin's career trajectory stayed on and he didn't get the suspension that he had, I think he probably would have found some of this a little bit sooner than he has maybe. But I believe in everything he's about. And he's a pro's pro, and he's got real talent. I mean, he's one of the better route runners I've been around. Really sudden, really fast, really explosive. And on top of it, he's a great personality. So to have him here and be able to go steal him from a division rival certainly makes it a little sweeter in that regard. But I love having Calvin. I think he's really going to help us.
So that's Brian Callahan on Calvin Ridley. Now, you go back to, what was that, late March when we had the owners' meetings? And Kevin Clark at ESPN had Callahan on his show for a sit-down. Talked about the deployment of Calvin Ridley from a more technical standpoint and invoked the name of Jamar Chase because, of course, coming from the Bengals offense, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, figures to be pretty similar here. Now, what Callahan said at the time is that you can expect Ridley to have a role very similar to what Jamar Chase did for the Bengals. What's the difference between Jamar Chase and Calvin Ridley? Well, I think there is a size difference. Which player is stronger than the other as far as contested catches and stuff like that? I think you could probably debate, though Jamar Chase is excellent when it comes to making contested catches. Faster, certainly Jamar Chase is because he's younger. I know Calvin Ridley is saying that he's got the body of a 25-year-old, and he's certainly moving really, really well out there. But he is 29, and there's some things that you just can't stave off no matter how well you take care of your body. Joe Burrow over Will Levis helps as well when you're talking about the deployment of the offense, how much you're able to do. Nate Tice was on the radio show yesterday. We talked about the idea of how condensed Tim Kelly's playbook was because you could only do so much when you're having to help both tackles. So was Tim Kelly truly a bum, averaging 17 point whatever the hell points per game, or can they just not get into the playbook because they have to help the tackles on every play? Certainly more the latter than the former for a proven offensive coordinator who has had success in the league prior to last year's one-year stint under Mike Vrabel. So, with all that, I think there's two things. One, you're running the Bengals offense. Can we dispute that the notion that we're not going to know basically what this looks like in 2024? That we're still trying to figure out exactly what the scheme and the deployment for these players are. You're running the Bengals offense. You signed.
Tyler Boyd has basically told us that.
Right, sure. But I think there's still some, well, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, this, that, and the other. It's going to be the Bengals offense. Even to the point of what we talked to Nate about yesterday with the running game. They're trying to run the ball at 5 or 6 yards a clip. They're trying to lighten the box because of that diverse passing game to create those opportunities for the running backs. Because if you go back and look at it, and I did last night, in every year that they had a healthy Joe Burrow, the rushing success rate for the Cincinnati Bengals with Brian Callahan as the offensive coordinator got better year over year. It was down last year because Joe Burrow spent a significant time of the season injured, and you're having to account then, or you're basically focusing on stopping the run and having, I'm blanking on the backup quarterback's name,
Jake Browning
try and go out there and beat you, and sometimes he did, to Jake Browning's credit.
And there was more of an emphasis on running the football, so that's going to lead to the success rate going down when it's happening more often. Joe Mixon ran the ball 257 times. That was fifth most in the NFL just last season.
So I kind of look at this, and it's different. It's different, but at least the themes are the same. Do you consider Tennessee's offense, Josh Heupel's offense, a running or a passing offense? It's a running offense.
Yeah, it's a running offense. Like, neither, because I won't assign it to one thing, because it is a run-based offense where the entire design is to set up the big play with the passing game.
But it's a run-based offense. How many casual college football fans in the country would tell you that Tennessee and Josh Heupel air raid?
Right. And it's so easy to make connections. He played for Mike Leach at Oklahoma, and 100%. But no, the passing attack does not happen without the success of the run game, and vice versa.
So you understand, I guess, the parallel that I'm trying to draw.
Sure. Jalen Wright ran against a lot of pretty light boxes last season and had a lot of success.
So that's the plan for the Titans too. You're not forsaking the running game just because Derrick Henry's not here, and the two running backs are not going to be exclusively wide receivers, because I think there's a tendency for people to veer one way or the other. Oh, we're getting a new passing game. We're going to throw the ball all over the yard. I think, Terry McCormick tweeted the show earlier. Terry, I think, had made an offhanded joke about the first OTA practice. He saw more passes thrown than he had in 6 years of watching a Mike Vrabel practice, or something to that effect. And maybe that is actually so. But still, the idea that they're just going to move exclusively to a passing game is something that Titans fans have to kind of detach themselves from, because the goal is to run the ball as efficiently as humanly possible. The thing about the Titans' running game in the last couple of years is volume, but not efficiency. You're looking for the most efficient version of this rushing attack that you can get, and doing so with interchangeable parts like Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, so you don't give your hand away to the defense and can still operate a bunch of different plays, a whole menu of plays out of similar formation sets.
Tajay Spears caught 52 passes for the Titans last season. Tony Pollard caught 55 passes for the Cowboys last season. How many do you think Joe Mixon caught for the Bengals as the primary tailback? There was no dual running back system, right? It was Joe Mixon.
I'm going to say, last year, because Jake Browning, it's going to skew the number, I feel like. I'll say 35.
52.
Okay. 52.
So he was number 10. He caught the same amount as Jahmyr Gibbs and Tajay Spears.
Okay. So, if not an outright part of the passing game, an option. The whole point of this scheme, and you've heard Brian Callahan articulate it, you've heard Will Levis articulate it, and several other NFL analysts that we've had on the show, whether it's Cosell, Nate Tice, or otherwise, the goal of the offense is to give you the answers to the test that the defense is presenting to you. The goal of the quarterback within the offense is to get to that answer the fastest. So whatever that answer is it the, the seam route where you've got a streaking, let's say, Traylon Burks running down the sideline, and you're going to hit him there because you've cleared out the secondary with however the scheme is developed? Is it the running back to just take the 5 or 6 yard gain as a part of the completion to stay ahead of the sticks and to keep the ball moving, to set up an offense in a situation where you just don't have to play that many third downs? You know how many damn third downs the Titans have played in the last 6 years? Because whether or not it's run, pass, it does get a bit formulaic with how they end up in a 3rd and 6+ situation where they've had an inefficient play on first down, even if the inefficient play is the most efficient play that they've had in the last 6 years because it's been Derrick Henry. I love the idea of the evolution of it. We're going to talk about the things that they actually accomplished this offseason en route to improving the team and whether or not they got them accomplished, what they needed to do versus what they actually got done. And this is a part of it. Checking the right boxes and creating these opportunities specifically around the quarterback. And I think Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, whether or not they're Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, they are going to make life so much easier for exactly what Nate Tice was on here talking about yesterday, for the significant leap that Will Levis is equipped to take. Whether he makes it or not, that's now incumbent upon him. But he has been properly, we can all agree, that Levis in this coming year has been properly equipped to make that leap. Everything else that he's going to have to do, it's going to have to be on him to make that progress himself.
He has everything he needs for us to at least have a very good idea of the trajectory that he is on as an NFL quarterback.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. You also have access to the F&M Bank chat. DTAG716 on YouTube says, Spears breakout season incoming, 2,000 all-purpose yards. What are we thinking? 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving for Tajay? It'd be really, really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, who just did that? Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
AP Offensive Player of the Year.
So forgive me if I'm not willing to make the McCaffrey leap with Tajay just yet. Hell, it took Christian McCaffrey a while to make that leap himself after so many injury-plagued seasons in Carolina.
Did he break 2K all-purpose?
McCaffrey?
Yeah.
I believe so. You might fact check me on that.
It might have been really close. He had 564. No, that's not right.
Okay, why don't I take a break and give you some time to look this up? And we'll talk about the Titans off-season in review coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Let's take a look at all the things that have happened in the offseason. Right? It's been a little bit of a chaotic offseason. Would you not say? Kept us on our toes. Coaching staff change, whole new roster pretty much. Undisputed quarterback situation, which is nice. No mentor gate this year. Lovely to have that sideshow off of our shoulders. But it has been a busy, if not hectic and chaotic offseason for the local professional football team. So I went through last night after we got done with the final day of offseason program and conditioning, because now, of course, the Titans have a 7-week summer break on the horizon. 6 weeks for the rookies because they'll still be around. But I went point by point, basically since the coaching change was made. Said, all right, of all the things that they had to get done this offseason, how much did they actually get done? So how do you want me to break this down? Because I've got 4 in the article at A2ZSports.com. I've got 4 different parts, but I know it's a little more detailed than that.
Let's go with the 4 biggest points of the offseason.
Okay.
Right? Because everything else is kind of an offshoot of that. So
coaching change.
Right. Coaching change, the first major domino, major bullet point of the Titans offseason.
Mike Vrabel out, Brian Callahan in. All right. So the whole point of the coaching change was what? They felt as an organization, and more specifically as an ownership group, that winning more games than you lost was not a sufficient reason to keep a coach in place. They felt like they'd kind of plateaued, not just because the personnel had dropped off, also the underlying story of Mike Vrabel, personnel control, how much they actually were willing to give Rand Carthon the reins, how much Rand Carthon was actually doing under the umbrella of general manager, and how different that was versus what John Robinson was, which was basically everything for the price of one.
I don't know if plateaued is the right word. Plateaued to me is 8 and 9. 7 and 10, 8 and 9.
No, I mean plateaued from a stylistic standpoint.
Sure, but
what the Tennessee Titans are is who the Tennessee Titans are going to be.
But they spiraled, right? They didn't just plateau.
No, they didn't spiral.
No, they spiraled.
No, they didn't spiral. At what point were they the worst team in football? At what point were they the Carolina Panthers?
Sure, but how many?
That's
how
like
many
saying the Los Angeles Rams. Did the Los Angeles Rams spiral after they won the Super Bowl and their roster kind of frayed and the injuries took over and Aaron Donald missed a bunch of time? No, they lost a fair amount of games. I think they were 5-12 that season. But that's not when you say spiraling, I think league worst.
How many teams in the NFL? We don't have to sit here and look it up, but how many teams do you think had a worse record over? What was it? What was the stat? Because you had 17 games, the 7-game losing
17
streak.
plus 6, Lucas.
17 plus 7, because it was a 7-game losing streak. 24. How many teams in the NFL
That's such a
do
fun
you
game.
think had a worse record than 6 and whatever 24 minus 6 is?
Oh, my God.
Across the league? Probably not that many.
Probably not that many. But again,
1 or 2?
If you're going to say spiral to me, that means to me, if I'm taking you literally, that's the worst team in the league. Now, that can be bottoming out. What they told you, Lucas, is that 6 and 7 wins is bottoming out for this organization. And that's a fair message to send. But it's not league worse. They were at no point, they were still cobbling together enough to put together wins when they probably had no business, like Miami, for example, right? So, but the point of making the coaching change is what? To make the product more viable, to win championships. Amy Adams-Strunk is at the press conference when they introduced Brian Callahan talking about bringing the Lombardi to Nashville for the first time. So they fire Mike Vrabel after the 6-11 finish, and they bring in an offensive-minded, play-calling head coach who's got a great resume of quarterback track record en route to moving on from Mike Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry, and all that connotes Titans offensive football under that previous administration. Did they check the coaching change box when they made the change from Mike Vrabel? There was a portion of Titans fans, I felt, that were split at the time that the decision was made. I don't know how to determine the majority because, I'm trying not to take too much feedback from social media because I know that's not all of you out there. But I would venture a guess to say it was pretty split down the middle. Some people would have liked to see Mike Vrabel return. Other people were ready for a change, ready to move on, ready to bring in a fresh set of eyes on the situation.
I think it was very split.
I would say it was split. And certainly, there were 2 different narratives, right? There were those of us locally who I would say that I didn't have a good feeling about Mike Vrabel getting fired until the Sunday before he got fired. If he got fired on a Tuesday, I didn't think that he was getting fired until that Sunday before. I think I was very adamant about that.
Yeah, I was very confident he would not.
And then I walked into the stadium the day that they beat the Jags, and it's like, oh my God, he's getting fired. It's everywhere. So that versus nationally when Mike Vrabel's fired and the Titans get dragged.
What did Mike Giardi say when he joined this show?
You'll remind me.
Pretty shortly after that, where he was calling Miss Amy Adams drunk.
He called her one of the worst owners in football.
Yeah, because they fired
Mike. Now, Titans fans immediately veered to the defensive and said, no, of course, he was the only problem that we had. Brian Callahan's coming in to make everything better. Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, rainbows, sunshine, butterflies, all that. Well, it's not really that cut and dry, but for the principle of what they needed to accomplish by making the coaching change, did they check the right boxes? Based on what they're seeking, yes, they got a person who is far more controllable than Mike Vrabel was, because certainly Mike had earned, and they had put a ton of marketing behind Mike Vrabel, bigger, tougher, stronger than you, smarter than you, and how he's the advantage on the sideline, right? That was the whole ethos of Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, but he wanted something that I don't think he had earned.
That's interesting.
When it comes to roster control.
And I think, clearly the organization agreed with you. But in his own mind, he had earned it. They felt like it was not a tenable situation. They moved on. They found a far more palatable person in Brian Callahan, who's got the offensive credentials that you want. So, did they check the box based on what they were looking for? The answer is yes. Now, you go to what is arguably the second, if not the most important thing, which is the investment in the offensive line. You start with drafting, well, you don't start with drafting J.C. Latham. You start with hiring Bill Callahan, which is what Brian is asked about at his introductory press conference. He said at that point he hadn't even given any thought, which is not terribly honest, because Brian
said Bill's under contract.
It was Teresa Walker asked the question. It was, oh no, we haven't even gotten to that point in the conversation, when last year Brian Callahan was interviewing for jobs and asking his dad if he wanted to work for him. So anyway. Bill Callahan coming to the Titans is the most important offseason acquisition, player, coach, equipment, staff, sled, any of it. Bill Callahan's presence here is the most important acquisition of the offseason, full stop. So you start there. Then, in free agency and via trade, Lloyd Cushenberry, Sadiq Charles, you add Leroy Watson. You have guys like Lachavious Simmons who are coming in. You have the player that they acquired today. Remind me his name.
Jerron Christian.
Jerron Christian, who is reportedly being signed by reported by Aaron Wilson, being signed by the Titans, coming in as tackle depth, having played for the Browns and the Texans last year. So they churn the roster considerably at the offensive line group. You've still got players like NPF, Peter Skoronski, Daniel Brunskill, who exist, but they've definitely been pushed as far as competition goes, if not already pushed out of starting roles.
I don't think you can say that before pads come on.
That's fair, but I'm just looking at the tendencies right now and the rep distribution right now.
Oh, I agree with you. Sadiq Charles, I think, starts camp as right guard one.
Fair to expect that there was a look at the Titans offensive line group, and Bill Callahan is saying, yeah, guys that I know can run this system, I'm going to go ahead and trade for or acquire, like Leroy Watson and Jerron Christian. Leroy Watson and Jerron Christian. Okay, thank you. Did the Titans invest enough with answers at every position, it seems, but right tackle right now in the offensive line group, given the depth of need that they had? Yes. Available resources spent on Lloyd Cushenberry, certainly. The most money for a center, most guaranteed money for a center in the history of the sport. Sadiq Charles figures to be, if not a starting player, competing for a starting spot. Leroy Watson, if not a starting player, figures to be competing for a starting spot. You've got additional swing tackle depth in case Jalen Duncan doesn't pan out as a former 6th-round pick here. You've got players who have played at least snaps at right tackle who can come in and play if NPF is either not physically ready to go or incapable of catching up based on the amount of time he's missed, because he's missed the entire offseason program. They traded for players, they signed players, and they drafted players at the offensive line group. They addressed it at all three levels of the offseason program. I don't know that they could have done much more investing in the offensive line. Based on what was available in free agency and what they added to the group than they did, unless, you were Joe Alt diehard and are still sick about the idea that the Chargers took him 2 picks before.
Right tackle was left out, along with what? Outside linebacker, as kind of the 2 spots that just weren't really touched. Apart from they draft Jalen Harrell in the 7th round. But in terms of the sweeping moves they made to address roster concerns, they were never going to be able to fix this entire roster in one offseason.
Let's call it right tackle and edge.
An edge rusher.
Right tackle and edge are the position groups, and safety. Right tackle, edge, and safety are the position
and that can
groups.
still be addressed.
Sure, and so could right tackle and so could edge, theoretically. But to date, the 3 biggest and most obvious holes on the roster are right tackle, edge, and safety. Now, to the defense. Just help generally on defense. Danico Autry, Azeez Al-Shaair out. Al-Shaair sets, or breaks rather, the single-season tackle record for the franchise that has stood for quite some time. Danico Autry has an incredibly productive 3-year stint here in Tennessee. Both of them go to the Houston Texans in the offseason after it sounds like the Titans were preparing at least to try and bring both back in some form or fashion. Whether they price themselves out here or just, I know Azeez wanted to play in Houston. He wants to play for DeMeco Ryans. He probably wanted to play for DeMeco Ryans last year and took an opportunity here in Tennessee. They don't replace either of them confidently yet. Can we say that? Sebastian Joseph Day is not a replacement for Danico Autry. T'Vondre Sweat really isn't a replacement for Danico Autry, even though the interior pass rush that you got from Danico, you can probably get from Sweat if all things go to plan for Sweat. But the question is, are things going to plan for Sweat? Because the answer right now is no.
That's going to be a major question throughout training camp, is where that 11.5 sack production is going to come from, that left with Danico Autry. We're going to be following that throughout the course of training.
And the pressures and the versatility, Lucas, because he's playing as much on the edge as he is on the inside. The thing with Danico is you have to use multiple players to replace him because he's so versatile that way. Because
you don't need T'Vondre Sweat to get 12 sacks this season.
No.
That's not the type of player he is, right? He's a game wrecker, but his sack numbers in college are not astronomical by any stretch.
Sure, but I'm not bent out of shape about the sacks specifically. I'm looking at the way that they create defensive pressure, okay, and how much you can use Danico Autry to move around and generate pressures in a variety of different ways, right? Which is critical to what Denard Wilson is going to try and accomplish there. Rather than just a big old dude in the middle of the defense, 2 big old dudes in the middle of the defense who can push the pocket from the inside. You're going to put you're going to put Jeff and Sweat on the edge from time to time. I don't know, maybe based on the formation. We'll see what happens there to try and take advantage of favorable matchups. But the Sweat thing, T'Vondre Sweat not knowing definitively until such time as they get ready to play an actual game, if he's going to be a day one starter or not, that's going to hover over everything that they do, at least until he takes full participation in a practice. So have they done enough to address? Let's start with the front 7, from off-ball linebackers to outside linebackers to defensive linemen. Have they done enough to address the front 7? My contention is no.
When you say done enough for what? To be one of the top...
To be a good defense.
To be a good defense.
Be a good defense.
This can be a good defense.
Was last year a good defense?
It was an average defense.
Okay. Do you want good or do you want average?
I want good.
I think, I look at their defense and I think that's probably going to be an average defense in 2024. Which, by the way, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. No, if you're scoring 30 points and you're giving up, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to score 30 points a game next year, but let's say you're scoring 27 and you're giving up 26.5 or something like that. I'm not saying it's going to be that deep on the Titans defense, but if they have one injury up front, they're kind of banged.
The thing that takes it from average to good or slightly above good, however you want to quantify it, feels like it's going to be T'Vondre Sweat and how much of an impact he can make in his rookie year, which is why we continue to come back to T'Vondre Sweat.
And I hate that they have put that much stock in a player that is coming in with this many question marks around him. Even as a collegiate athlete, he's clearly a great player. I'm not disputing the talent that is T'Vondre Sweat. I want to make sure that I'm clear.
And it's not about the off-field stuff either.
No, it's about 2 things for me, okay? Because the off-field thing, like, I'm not going I'm not going to kill the guy for the DWI, even though I understand the severity of the infraction itself and how many other lives can be impacted from that. I'm not trying to discount the severity of the infraction. I'm just saying that it should not be a hammer that you hit him with for the rest of his life, and every conversation about T'Vondre Sweat brings up a DWI. If he takes the right level of responsibility around it and corrects the mistakes, like we talked about with Jeff when he got here, right? Different scenarios, but you understand my meaning. The idea of Sweat and just placing so much stock in a player whose opportunity cost is the biggest thing for me. What did it cost you to draft to stick and pick T'Vondre Sweat at 39? Because that Rams
38.
offer, 38? That Rams offer is going to sit in the back of my head, and several other offers. Rand Carthon brought it up, right? And Brian Callahan quickly jumped in at that post-draft press conference and said, well, just because we got a bunch of offers doesn't mean that it was good enough for us to pass on our guy. And they may well be proven right by that. But to date, the T'Vondre Sweat thing has not gone to plan. And that is something that has to be continue to be monitored, continue to be discussed, because its impact is going to have reverberations.
He probably needs to be, I don't know, what do you think if I say a special player? Like, what comes to mind when I say he needs to be a special player on the interior of the defensive line?
Well, so like a nose tackle. He needs to be, do you remember Brandon Williams from the Ravens?
Yeah.
The big old 300-pounder, incredibly athletic nose tackle that was doing backflips and stuff like that. Like, he needs to be a Brandon Williams, Haloti Ngata type of player. And I know I just went with two Ravens defensive linemen there, but like when I'm thinking interior defensive linemen, I don't think anybody creates them as well as the Ravens do.
Yeah.
Because of because of the way that their defense is schemed and how they scheme it around it. Because Jeff is a special player. Harold is a special player. T'Vondre Sweat is a special college football player, but I've seen plenty of special college football players wash out in the NFL for less question marks around them than this one's got. 615-737-1045 is the number. Aubrey Calvin says, Buck, bet a shave cut that the Titans defense is good. Now, why would I do that? I mean, listen, I was backing Lucas off the defense last year. I think the concerns are just as much this year, but there's twofold reason to that. One, Sweat. Two, Snead. We haven't seen Snead do anything but go through a walkthrough practice today. And I know what L'Jarius Snead is as a two-time Super Bowl champion. I've seen all his games for the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, if I'm a Titans fan, I don't care about the Super Bowls that he won for Kansas City. It's what have you done for me lately? That's always at the core of everything that we talk about for the league. And what he's done is gone through a couple of walkthrough practices, wave high at the media to make sure that we know that he's there and go about his day.
There's a lot of things that have to go right for this defense to be at a higher level than it was last season, right? Like T'Vondre Sweat.
To be better than average?
Yes. That stuff has to be figured out, right? And he needs to be at training camp healthy and in shape and play and produce for this team as a rookie. And L'Jarius Snead has to have that carryover from last season where the management portion was there throughout the course of last season for the Chiefs. He was always available and always excellent on game days.
Yep.
That has to carry over. Yep. Like, there are a lot of moving parts that have to, which is the case for any unit, I suppose. But yeah, I think it's
banking on carryover, though, kills you in football.
Yeah. And
especially in the NFL.
It's hard to blindly say that, oh, this defense is going to be a very good NFL defense in 2024, no questions asked.
I trust that Denard Wilson knows what he's talking about. I've talked to enough players in the offseason that they are, a lot of them, expressing surprise that he's never been a defensive coordinator before. So that's, my concern is not necessarily with the coaching, though he's a bit of an unproven commodity himself in this.
As a play caller.
As
is your head coach, by the way.
Which is why I'm saying boxes checked. We don't know any of this stuff definitively. I don't know that Brian Callahan is going to be good at everything that a head coach encompasses. But did they accomplish what they were looking for in hiring an offensive-minded play caller to come in and be the next head coach? Yes. Will it translate? I have no bleeping idea. But that's why it's the offseason. We're still waiting on a lot of this stuff. The question is, did they do the right things to set themselves up for success? And I think if you at least take those three parts where it was the most glaring issues, the help on defense, the offensive line investment, and the coaching staff change, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. If I feel good about the trajectory of the offense, and I have plenty of question marks about the defense. And I don't think that's unfair at all. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. Last call for phone calls and an update on some polls coming up next. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number. You can jump in with us. If you don't get in with us, you can hang out with Blaine Bishop coming up next. Sure, they will have all manner of Titans observations to get into. We do have Game 3 of the NBA Finals tonight. The Boston Celtics leading the series 2-0 over the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas making a little bit more competitive, a lot more competitive in Game 2 than it was in Game 1. I don't want to discount what Luka did. But it does just feel like Dallas. I mean, I don't know if Dallas is going to get swept. I would be shocked to see Dallas get swept. I would be genuinely surprised. But what the Celtics are doing this year is just rolling, absolutely rolling teams. Would this be the least dramatic NBA champion that we've had? I mean, there's really been no question that even when the Pacers gave them a couple of series, right, and stuff like that, but it wasn't really a series because they're still a sweep.
They gave them a couple games.
Yeah.
Yeah, just your hard hat, lunch pail guys out there winning an NBA championship.
The Warriors, when they had KD, very undramatic.
No, but I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true.
Because Draymond is nothing but drama.
Well, like in terms of like just mowing down teams.
Oh, sure.
Oh, right. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yes, that was a historically unprecedented, great. How many? They won 73 games that season? The Warriors?
That was the year they lost.
They lost to the Cavs.
They lost to the Cavs. That was the 3-1 comeback.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's probably been since that Kevin Durant Warriors championship season. But even then, KD, Draymond, all that came with some level of at least discussion. Like they're polarizing.
The fact that KD was on that team, yes, like that infuriated people in and of itself. The Celtics, apart from being a Boston team,
and everybody hates Boston, right?
Right.
Well, I hate Boston fans. I don't hate Boston. Love Boston.
If you hate the Celtics, you hate the Celtics. If you hate Boston, you hate Boston fans, then that's fine. But nothing about this team. What is hateable about this team? Like Jaylen Brown?
Joe Mazzulla seems like kind of a dope, the coach. Did you know that was the name of the Boston Celtics coach?
Yeah, I did.
Are you sure?
Did that sound convincing? Like Jason Tatum, if you hate Jason Tatum, why do you hate Jason Tatum? It's probably because you hate Duke or you hate Boston, right? Not because you hate Jason Tatum, the guy.
You don't hate Jason Tatum. He's not hateable. The reason that Jason Tatum is worth discussing at all is, does he underachieve? Because he's not had dominant, he had a dominant performance?
He's not been very efficient.
You know what I'm saying? So, if you have criticism, it's criticism. It's not hatred. This is a great player, allegedly, and yet in the biggest moments, he's not overwhelmingly great. I think that's, what are you going to, you're not going to hammer Jaylen Brown, are you? I mean, he's just kind of a side party to the Jason Tatum show, or at least what's supposed to be the Jason Tatum show. And then you got guys like Kristaps Porzingis,
who may not play today. It's questionable.
You see the name of the injury or the part of him that's injured that Shams tweeted out the other day?
Yeah, it's almost harder to say than his name for a lot of people. It is a very rare injury, apparently, that is being called a torn medial retinaculum. Retinaculum?
Well, at first I thought it was rectum, and I knew that wasn't correct, and that sounded extremely painful.
Whose name is that in the chat?
Right. He has a torn medial retinaculum, allowing dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon in his left leg.
All right, Shams doesn't even know what that is. He just copied and pasted whatever it is that the doctor sent him or the agent sent him and said, all right, that's it. I'm not going to have the medical degree to parse all this for you.
That's me reading from Tim Bontemps of ESPN.
Quickly, Cheeseburger's on the line. What's happening, bud?
What's going on, Buck? How y'all doing today?
Good, buddy.
I'm doing good too. I just want to tell you, before I get to my stuff here, me and my wife and kids, we're gonna be moving to Florida here in 2 weeks. We're gonna be moving down outside the Orlando area. So, but I just want you to know, I am gonna stay loyal, and I'm gonna stay a Titans fan while I'm living in Florida, baby. You best believe it. I am going to wear my Titans gear down in Florida. And, hey, Buck, I got something for you. Let's say the Titans win 13 games this coming season. Me and you, we will shave our heads. All right.
No,
We'll
why
shave
do
our
I'm not
head.
doing this, Cheeseburger? Listen, I'm not shaving my head if your team wins a bunch of games this year.
Hey, and also, this goes to all of Vols fans out there. Come Friday in Omaha, y'all better get ready because the Noles are coming after the number one team, baby. Let's go Noles, baby. Let's go Florida State, baby. Let's go. It's a Buck Rising show all day, every day. Let's go, Buck. Lucas Van Zink and Cheeseburger show. Yeah, let's go. Let's go, Buck, baby. You're my hero every day, Buck. It's a joy to listen to you every day. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah, I was with it until the end there, Cheeseburger. Please don't stop calling in. I hope we don't lose Cheeseburger as a listener and caller after the move to Florida.
I don't think we will. I'm not concerned about losing Cheeseburger. Jackson should be more concerned that Cheeseburger's trying to squeeze him out en route to the Lucas Panzica Buck Rising and Cheeseburger show. Apparently.
Yeah, I have noticed I'm never included in the raps. Getting a little concerned for my job
must
back
say
here.
I have noticed.
Polls, please.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is the most important move that the Titans made this offseason? Scoob says left tackle and center are my choices. Jay says easily Calvin Ridley being added. Kenneth going with the coaching changes. John says Bill Callahan. Paul also says Calvin Ridley. And Matt says it's Lloyd Cushenberry and Calvin Ridley.
It's Bill Callahan. That's the answer.
It is Bill Callahan, but off of that, I'm going with J.C. Latham because I don't know if there's any one thing that torpedoed the Titans more last season or the season before last than left tackle play. Mm-hmm. You can make all the moves around Will Levis you want to, and with not just poor left tackle play, but atrocious left tackle play, none of it might matter. So I'd be going with J.C. Latham if we're going players.
Somebody in the chat just accused Cheeseburger of going to be a Jags fan in 10 weeks or less, guarantee it.
Which conference will win the College World Series, the ACC or the SEC? Cheeseburger is going with the ACC, I'm sure. The audience is going with the SEC. 90% go SEC over ACC.
Shocking to nobody.
Yes. What gives you more offseason fatigue, Aaron Rodgers or Treylon Burks? 57% say Aaron Rodgers.
Close vote.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Check out the podcast. If you missed any of the show, we will look forward to hanging out with you tonight on primetime. You can catch it on the A to Z Sports Network. Bert and myself, or Bert and me to be grammatically correct, at 7 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. The rest of us will talk to you tomorrow morning at 10. Blaine Bishop and company coming up next.